All right, thank you. So starting off, I'm part of the internal IT at Capgemini. Capgemini, for those of you who don't know, is an IT services company operating out of, I think, about 150 countries, and we manage approximately about 340 to 350,000 endpoints currently. Being a part of the internal IT, we are, of course, present in most of the countries there. I head a group called Intelligent Operations and Delivery, which is focused on how we can leverage these digital tools a little bit more effectively in the organization. So as Group ID, we started off our transformation journey a couple of years back. The step one in that journey was, of course, how do you standardize things? So in about 2018, we put together the various desks operating in different parts of the countries, put together the various tools, got together onto a standard operating model, standard operating procedures, global SLAs, and what have you. So once we had the foundation done, we moved on to the next thing, which is not next thing, but we moved on to the next phase of it, so which was around bringing about a digital foundation. So looked at automation, and currently we're averaging about 24% of all our tickets are automated. So we put the automation framework in place starting 2018, followed very closely by deploying an enterprise virtual agent. It was absolutely the need of the hour because that's how people are connecting at this point of time. And I think that's been a particularly good success as well. We average about anywhere north of 700 to 800,000 interactions on a monthly basis. That finally led us to, of course, to Nexthink. In, I think, 2022, while the journey started, this review of that started in 2021, it was interesting, and I think this is an implementation that I'm particularly pleased with because, as you know, historically, IT has always been so much focused on the back end of the things. How is the application working? How is the data center performing? How is the network performing from a central repository point of view? And here comes Nexthink, which starts giving us a more 360-degree view into how our services are really operating, right? So we had views from the endpoint now coming in for everybody to look at. So just some key figures on where we managed to get from 22 to now in the last 2 years. We deployed across 340,000 devices, both Windows and Mac. We started with Nexthink in a hybrid deployment, and I think earlier this year we moved completely to Infinity Stack, which did bring about a lot of benefits for us. We monitor about 162 applications, both web and desktop-based, as well as connectivity, so get great insights into how Zscaler is performing or Cisco AnyConnect performs for us. We have about 494 remote actions deployed. 290 odd of those are custom remote actions that we've developed along with Nexthink, focusing and addressing our specific requirements, and which then results into roughly around about 1.4 billion remote actions being actioned every month, with about 100 million remediations being carried out across our landscape. We have we've started using software metering, and about 53 software packages are evaluated and measured as well. But the other interesting part about this one, of course, is that over a period of time, we've been able to get more and more people to use it within Group ID. So it's not just my team which is looking at this performance or the Nexthink analyst looking at it, but our network team, for example, absolutely loves it. And it's become the standard go-to tool. Wi-Fi issues, Nexthink. Your Teams call's not working through, use Nexthink, get the insight on the device and work from there. And lastly, of course, is campaigns. We do about 100 campaigns. Currently, 60 of them are associated with the remote actions being executed, and the rest of them run on a proactive basis, as the case may be. So numbers are good, but what's the impact of this thing, right? Because that's what is so much more important. When we started off with the implementation of Nexthink, we wanted to focus on 4 niche areas. So one, compliance. It was absolutely important. How do we improve the compliance of our landscape, particularly given the fact that at that point we moved into a completely hybrid environment. A lot of the people were working remotely, and the accessibility of reaching those devices was getting impacted, right? We're moving away from traditional office presence to remote presence. We looked at user experience, of course. It was a key starting off points. Has to improve. We need to be able to be more proactive and start improving on that particular front. Improve the productivity of our team members, right? Make sure that our people are not spending all their time just trying to address mundane tasks or routine activities, increase efficiency, and of course, sustainability. So how did it go? Oh, brilliantly. Nexthink has become such an integral part of what we do across on these topics. Compliance, we managed to improve from, I think, 98 point something to about 99.6 as per the most recent report that I've got. And this covers things like, what DNS system you have in place, what antivirus you have, what is the asset discovery that you have in place, etc., etc. So very good improvement over there. On the user experience score, we went from 68 to about 78 over a period of time. And there was a lot of these small activities which were done. Not only did this happen, but so we not only did this happen and improve the DEX score, but this also resulted in good CSATs and feedback coming through on the regular tickets which are being closed from an IT point of view. So I think a lot of good feedback on that front, and the impact of this was very evident. Productivity side, we had a 20% reduction in our ticket resolution timeframe. All our tickets that were coming in now were automatically enriched with data from Nexthink. So people, when they looked at starting to address it, had improved insights on what that topic was. So this entire habit of, can I take a remote into your device to understand, can I check these logs, went away. So massively improved on the MTTR. We had a 69% drop on tickets around password resets. There were a lot of queries coming in, the calls coming in around password reset, but by leveraging Nexthink and sending out the notifications, we did quite well over there. Moving on to sustainability, which was definitely a capability which far exceeded my expectations. I did not expect it to perform the way it did. So when we got Nexthink in, we've always focused on sustainability. So we moved on to the part where we're looking at a green IT. We looked at buying better PCs. We're going to reduce carbon footprint and all that other things. And we did a lot of stuff on the data center side of the house. On the PC end, however, it was always anecdotal or perceived insights into what the power consumption is. And this is where Nexthink really bought things out. We were able to start seeing what the power consumption was across the different power profiles which have been deployed on the same kind of a hardware. So you bought an HP, what was the power consumption? What was the power consumption on an Intel versus an AMD chipset that's been bought in? So across a range of topics, we were able to get those insights in. We ran it for about, I think, 6 months to just create the baseline across all the different types of hardware, across the different types of power profiles. And then the team started working out what the action plan of this one is. One of the first few things, of course, that we realized was that you had the issues around performance and things were not so much around the power being drawn up because of CPU usage or anything else, but it was various other contributing factors. The second thing was a lot of the PCs, while they had balanced power profile by default, were not really functioning the way we would want it to function. So the team then went ahead and defined the power profiles into multiple segments. We looked at balance, which was the default, and looked at if we changed it from balanced power profile going across to a power saver, what the impact is. And that's where we saw almost a drop of almost about 30 to 32% of power consumption. And mind you, this was an advantage that was passed on not only from a Capgemini perspective, but it was passed on to the end user because power consumption is applicable when they're at home as well. So we did a pilot, we tested with a group of people on this particular power change, and it worked. We went across, spoke to a larger audience, and then we started deploying across the landscape. This was done in some places as a default setting, and in some places in a campaign which asked people if they want to volunteer for this particular change. And right now we've got about 118,000 devices which have opted in for the power saver power plan, and with a reduction of about anywhere between 28 to 32% reduction in power saving. But this was, of course, not all of it, right? Now you had these power saving coming in. How do you encourage the people to be more aware about this for what the benefits are, what the advantages are? And that's where we also had things like your integration that we did with our enterprise virtual agent. Now, not only were the users being told about changing the power plan, but they had the ability of just asking the agent, what is the power consumption that the device has? What is the optimal power plan? And they were being now informed about the power consumption and the carbon savings that are potentially possible. So if you were not on the power saver plan, it would encourage you and show you what the difference was, that if they moved to the power saver plan, what the advantage they would get. Along with that, we started looking at, fine, we've got the power saver happening, what else is really there? How do you extend the life of the devices, which is one of the bigger contributors to how the power saver, how the sustainability kicks in. And again, the analysis came in around the fact that most of the time the people were coming across and asking for a change of device, not so much because the CPUs were being overused or the device was having issues from a processing perspective, but more on the fact that their memories were being overused or their hard disk was not performing, etc., right? And one of the typical use cases, of course, was that everybody would come back and complain about the PC takes a long time to boot, because over a period of time, as IT does, we'd load it up with a lot of these applications to load at startup. So we took those analyses in, we took the data points in, worked with the various application owners to really understand, does it make sense to have those applications as part of your startup? Clean that thing up and reduce the startup time very significantly. The second thing that we did was we looked at the devices, particularly the one with low DEX score, and said, why are they having, what are the things that we can change on that so that this improves? And what came about was memory, right? So we worked with the on-site support teams and the OEMs of those various products, changed that to increase the memory, improve the hard disk in some of those cases, and made that thing happen across the globe. And right now, I'm happy to say we are about, I think, 22% of our devices are greater than 4 years, and I think 16% is greater than 5 years in our landscape. So the other last part that we did on this front, again, was the fact that we looked at what's the battery utilization, because that's another typical pain area where people's batteries were conking up or were just not functioning, right? I mean, they were running out faster than it should, wouldn't retain a charge. And that's another area where we looked at, worked with the OEMs, and wherever it was feasible to change the batteries, we went ahead and changed it. All of that did result in a couple of things. As I said, the extended the number of devices greater than 4 years. As a policy, now we don't replace devices till the time they really give up. We got our power consumption improved significantly as well. I think about 28% reduction in power consumption. So where do we go from here? For the things that we want to do is, one, with the integration with the virtual agent that we've got, we have an enterprise-wide virtual agent. We've integrated basic self-help into the module, and you can get things like your Outlook's not working, your Teams is crashing, and other things. We want to look at enhancing this ability so that the users need not necessarily have to call up the service desk or reach out to an IT person, but get the support that they need right up front from the bot. Flow, we tested Flow with very good results, and a lot of the complex use cases, particularly around the compliance, are an area that which we are going to be looking at putting into place. A single pane of glass. Now that's very important because right now we still have very siloed information. So what the team is currently doing is trying to see how do we match up and marry up this information that's coming from Nexthink, which is endpoint centric, to using data coming in from monitoring tools around networks, around servers and things. Because when an issue happens, you do need the ability to be able to see things across all these different environments. Sustainable practices, we are actively working with the various teams on how do you do it. This is about encouraging people and guiding them towards the right direction, and that's where Nexthink Engage comes in for us. And last but not the least is, of course, what we spoke about, that start doing a lot more proactive. So when there are insights are available, we have data points around how Nexthink, around a particular device, we want to start using it a bit more effectively to address the situation. So that's it from my side around what we've done so far. Happy to take questions, if any.
I'll go back to, we had talked about extending the lease. So you extended the time of replacement with workstations. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes.
When you were talking about extending the life of your endpoints, your endpoints leased or procured? I was just wondering how you're able to flex.
So were you asking if the endpoints are leased or procured?
Correct.
Right. So in most cases, they're procured. We have certain few countries where we lease them, but for the most part, we procure endpoints.
It's just that I procure.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay.
With regards to educating the business, I find that's the biggest piece with tech and sustainability. How are you engaging with them to kind of give them the knowledge for how they can have a greener experience outside of just battery use, but things like they have an application, there's a data center attached to that application, there will be consumable things that, from a sustainability point of view, and I feel the business, loves another app where they can drive different business changes and challenges forward, but they don't always think about what's in the back end of that. It kind of feels like it's a bit of a mystery and they don't really understand from a sustainability point of view what that means from tech. Is there anything you're leveraging also within the Nexthink estate to monitor and manage that?
Yes, so we published the electricity consumption pattern for their endpoints that they're using, right? From a Nexthink perspective, that's about the limit of what you have visibility into. So we do publish this on a periodic basis. In fact, our usage of Nexthink and the energy consumption and the reduction thereof is actually part of the annual report that now Capgemini publishes as, from a sustainability perspective. So, but no, the only visibility you have is endpoint power consumption per location. So we did present to the country boards about this is the amount of power that you're consuming as a country, and these are the number of people who are on the power saver plan and they're consuming this much lesser compared to these many people who are actually not on the relevant power plan. So those are the insights that we provide. We do give them insights around, again, the same thing, which is how many devices they've replaced versus devices that they've extended the life for. How many people opted in for RAM upgrades and disk upgrade to extend the life again. So all of those insights are provided, but going back to whether the application is configured in a particular way, now we've got green guidelines that we keep sharing from an IT point of view with the business holders. In fact, if you go onto a virtual agent and say, give me the green guidelines, we publish it there. But Nexthink is limited to the endpoint devices.
then
When you're looking at extending your device life cycle, are you then also looking at what from a sustainability point of view, what that would mean to not extend them? So having a device for 4 years versus 5 years, actually using a device that's older sometimes means it's drawing on greater power, and actually, whilst we feel the benefits of recycling and so forth,
Yes,
it can kind of offset it in a way. So I don't know if you're reviewing that at all.
we do. We measure the electricity consumption, and we keep doing comparisons of which devices are still drawing more power. And absolutely, we've had some old HP devices that were consuming a lot more power, even though they were in the usable life period. But we did look at changing them out because the benefit of extending the life just didn't make sense. So we absolutely measured we constantly measure the electricity consumption that's happening across these devices.
Thank you, Sid. And thank you, everyone.